one day I woke up and I had severe gastrointestinal issues. There was a lot of pain and a lot of blood.
Wow.
And it just came out of nowhere, and I didn't know what was happening. And it was really painful. And so I would be on the toilet for hours every morning.
Welcome to the Rock Bottom Podcast, presented by Jigsaw Health, where we share health horror stories that inspire. I'm Ashley LaRue.
And I'm Patrick Sullivan. Each episode, we explore raw, unfiltered journeys of survival, experiences that will inspire, educate, and remind you that no matter how low you feel, there's always a way up.
Before we dive in, just a quick note. This podcast is for informational purposes only, and it isn't a substitute for medical advice. Always consult a healthcare professional before making any changes to your health routine.
Today's guest found himself unable to eat without pain, causing not only physical, but also emotional stress. Through trial, error, and total dedication, he took back control of his health by overhauling his diet.
So let's get into it. This is the Rock Bottom Podcast. Landon Flowers, I'm so excited to have you on the show today. We both are, and we're excited to dive into your story. I'm going to start by asking you, if you were to write a book about your health journey, what would it be called?
This is the one question I didn't answer in my...
We gave
When
you
you
the
sent
show
over
notes, and that was the thing that you didn't prep for.
Yep.
Like if
That's
something
okay.
crazy just popped into your head and you had to say it in 3 seconds, what would it be?
Healing is possible for you.
All right. I like that.
That's really
perfect.
good. I just got goosebumps.
I mean, I'm going to order that on Amazon.
No, seriously, healing is possible for you. And that really is the goal of what we want to do here on the Rock Bottom Podcast, is to bring in guests like Landon that have an amazing story and inspire others, those of you watching at home, listening at home, to realize that healing is possible for you. I love that title. Funny how it just came to you.
I'm sure I might make some adjustments if I had more time to think about it.
But sometimes less time is better because you don't overthink it, right?
That's right. That's a version 1.
How old were you when your health started to decline, would you say?
I was about 27 years old. I'm 34 now, so it's been about a 7-year journey since everything. I mean, I know that the dysfunction and being unhealthy started long before that, but the symptoms really started when I was about 27.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you walk us through that time and that kind of experience and what led you to the moment that you're like, whoa, my health isn't right?
Yeah, so it all started when I just couldn't get a deep breath. So it was very odd. I was pretty fit. I worked out every day. I was just starting grad school. I'm a school psychologist, and so I was working full-time and going to school full-time. And right in the beginning, all of a sudden, I woke up every day and I just couldn't get a deep breath no matter how hard I tried. And that was pretty much my only symptom for about a year and a half. And I just could never get a full breath. And that was very odd. And so I went to go see a doctor, and he told me that I was getting older. And I said,
At 27,
yeah, I
you're
said,
getting older.
No, I don't think that's it. Like, I can't get a deep breath. And it's not, so he diagnosed me with exercise-induced asthma, even though I told him this is all the time, not only when I exercise. So,
What was some of the thoughts going through your head as you're like, gosh, another day, I'm having trouble getting a deep breath? Like, what did that make you think?
I mean, I had no idea. I had no answers. They put me on some steroids and tried some different things. I just thought it would just go away.
Nebulizer, like a nebulizer steroid to get into your lungs?
Eventually, they did give me some of that, but at first they were just giving me like the little tablets, just like little steroid tablets, just to see if that would clear things up, and it didn't.
Didn't move the needle at all?
No, not at all.
So you did that for a while, and then what?
Well, and then I just stopped taking anything, and I just assumed this was kind of my new normal, and I was just dealing with it. I would have to sit upright, puff out my chest, and like really focus on trying to draw in breath to just clear my head and make sure I was able to focus and function.
Yeah.
But then...
Sorry, when you say you were having trouble getting a deep breath ever, do you feel like you were breathing 50% of the way, 75%? What did it feel like in your head?
Yeah, just really shallow, quick breaths, probably about 50%. Yeah.
Wow.
That would be really scary.
All the time.
It was, yeah. Yeah. And there were times where it would be worse than others. Like, if I wasn't in fresh air or if I was sitting down, I was driving a lot for my job at the time. And so I would notice it more while I was sitting. Eventually, one day I woke up and I had severe gastrointestinal issues. There was a lot of pain and a lot of blood.
Wow.
And it just came out of nowhere. And I didn't know what was happening. So that
Blood in
felt
the
like
stool?
Yeah.
Dark blood, red blood.
So honestly, it's kind of
it is gross.
It's a little bit gross and graphic.
Yeah, if you're willing to share, the
Oh,
audience will
absolutely.
be okay.
I mean,
the audience will appreciate
This is your warning,
Yeah.
people.
the details.
Yeah,
Yeah,
heads up.
Yeah.
So it was less blood in the stool and more just blood.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't even distinguish. It was just and mostly liquid.
Yeah.
And it was really painful. And so I would be on the toilet for hours every morning.
Wow. Okay, so the first time that happened, you were probably like scared to death and like, okay, who am I going to call? Who was your doctor? Like, you don't need to mention names, but did you have a specific doctor on call for your health at that time? Or did you kind of feel
I
like,
didn't. So, I was in transition between jobs and starting grad school. And so I had health insurance through my program. I was doing a graduate assistantship. And so I just contacted a primary care physician that I didn't know. And so he brought me in and it was a extremely long process. It took months and months, even just to get my first appointment. And then from there, for him to say, oh, yep, looks like something's wrong. I'm going to send you over to a gastrointestinal specialist. And that took months. So it was a painstaking
meanwhile, you're in
process.
excruciating
Yeah,
pain.
every day. Yeah.
Every single day,
Yeah.
no breaks.
Yeah. And I had been like pretty healthy my whole life. I had never really experienced sickness of any kind. And like I shared, I was pretty fit. I played basketball all the time. And so I just thought that as long as I was exercising, that I was healthy and strong. I would tell my wife that too. She'll tell you all about that. But
Yeah, I mean, you're doing all the things that they say you should be doing to be a healthy person.
right, yeah. And I ate what I thought was a healthy diet. Like I would make the healthy choice at fast food places. What I thought
Give
was
me
a
an
healthy
example
choice.
of a healthy fast food choice.
Sure. Well, without dropping the name of a company, I would choose grilled chicken instead of breaded,
Oh, I think I know where you're talking.
not knowing that there's a million other ingredients in the food.
chicken.
Yeah.
Just in the grilled chicken.
Yeah.
Well, you expect if you order grilled chicken that that's what you're getting. And one thing that we are uncovering as a nation, I hope and think that like that's actually not the case. There is all kinds of junk hidden in all kinds of food. So
There's lots of ways that they disguise, those ingredients for
yes.
sure. Yeah.
So
If now is an okay time, I'd like to ask just real quick, leading up to your first symptom of, the not being able to take a deep breath and then leading to the gastrointestinal stuff. Was there anything in the months or years prior that you recall that was like a traumatic event or any kind of trauma or like stressful thing that you dealt with?
I would say just more chronic stress, like nothing really acute, but like I shared, I was going to grad school full time, I was working full time, and we were trying to have a baby at the time. So I did have my first son in 2018. So that was just a year after the breathing issues started. So there was a lot going on. Yeah.
I mean, I think we are all under more chronic stress than we think, or normal. Most people are. Just life, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot to deal with, and so okay. Did you want to say something?
yeah, take me to the bathroom with you.
Gross.
Bring me back. Bring the
I'll paint
audience
a vivid
back to
picture
that
for you.
moment where you're on like the second week, the third week, the third month of this like very traumatic bathroom experience. What's going through your head?
It's just so much confusion. I thought I had the answers. I thought someone else would help me, and no one knew what was going on, least of all myself. Other people, and anyone I would talk to or would hear my story would give me all sorts of advice, which is well-intentioned, or just tell me like, oh, you just have to go on a juice fast. It'll fix everything. Or you have to pray more or whatever it is, right? So I was kind of in a spiral, and I just didn't know down from up. I was just so confused and scared for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were there ever moments of like, I want to give up? This is terrible.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because I tried a bunch of different diets for years. So I tried the autoimmune protocol, I tried juice fasting, I tried a fruitarian diet. I found someone who wrote a book on healing.
What is that?
So that's just eating fruit.
Oh, okay.
And
Fruitarian. That makes
And it
sense.
made sense to my mind. The book talked about how, animals don't rely on anything processed, and I was like, that makes sense. So I'll try it. It just kept getting worse and worse on the diet. And the guy I was talking to, the author of the book, he was telling me just to keep going, just keep going. And it was like months, and I was like, it's
Wow.
not getting better. So I tried a lot of different things, and there were certainly points where if it were just me by myself, single guy, I probably would have just given up for sure. But for my wife and my newborn son, I knew I had to figure something out, no matter how hard it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you tried the diets. Anything else that you tried that didn't work?
Yeah. So I tried the traditional medical route. So I was prescribed anti-inflammatory medicine, drugs. And so that worked for about 6 months, only for that one symptom, the gastrointestinal issue. The breathing issue didn't go away. And I also didn't share that I also had something, they diagnosed me with reverse psoriasis. I was getting these big rashes all over my body, and they were cracking and they were bloody. And it was really hard. But
If we can go down that for a second.
Yeah.
So psoriasis, you think of that like on the hands and feet most commonly. Why is it called reverse psoriasis? Do you recall?
I think it was in my armpits mostly.
Yeah.
That's where the issue was. And
God, that must
normally
be
it's on the
awful.
outside. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Like putting on a shirt would be super painful, just lifting my arms at all. Yeah. Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah.
You must have just been thinking, my body is getting destroyed.
Yeah. For the first time, it felt like my body was betraying me. At the time, it felt that way. Now I know that wasn't the truth. It was actually trying to heal me. I had a ton of, toxicity in my body. So I did the anti-inflammatory drugs, and then I was told that I needed to go on biologic medication. I never did, because I knew that wasn't the answer. The doctor told me it would be more likely I would develop cancer. And so, I don't want that because I have my son and I need to get better.
So they said if you go on biologic medication, what is that?
Oh, it's all over commercials. You've seen them before.
Okay.
Humira,
Oh, got
all
it.
that stuff.
Like pharmaceutical.
Yeah, you see the commercials and everyone's so happy and they're living their best life, and then it tells you the list of side effects and they're
Yes.
terrifying.
Humira,
Yeah.
is that a psoriasis drug or?
Well, so that was for the gastrointestinal issues
Okay.
specifically, I think. And I don't remember if that was the brand, but I hate to even use that name on the
It's okay.
podcast. But
That's fine.
We get the point.
yeah.
So then, you did you said no to that.
Yeah. And so I looked up the efficacy of the drug, and I was seeing that it was something around like 50, it worked for 50% of people that used it for any sustained amount of time. And it also came with all those side effects. So I knew that.
And you're like, I'm already having the worst side effects just waking up in the morning. So I
Yeah,
don't need
for
any
sure.
more adverse events.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Wow.
So I went that route. And when I found out that was my solution or their solution for me, it was then I was like, no, I'm gonna go find a different route. So I went. I saw multiple different naturopathic doctors. They ran a bunch of different tests. In some ways, I would see slight improvement. That in itself, I think, was a catalyst for me understanding that like, if something can help, I can find something. At the time, for a while, I didn't even believe that I could get well. I knew I would do anything to get well, but I just didn't know what that thing was.
Right.
So I was just searching for answers
Mhm.
from there. Yeah.
So what kind of tests do you recall being run with a naturopath?
So a lot of blood tests were done, stool tests as well of different types. With the standard medical route, I had a colonoscopy, a sigmoidoscopy, and then a blood test with them as well. I don't remember all the names of the
Yeah.
individual tests. But basically, any test I took an allergy test with a naturopathic doctor, a food allergy test, and it told me that I was allergic to everything. And I couldn't have anything. And I was like, that can't be right either. I mean, I know I'm supposed to be able to eat some type of food.
Right.
Yeah. So that's why it was so confusing to me. It was like, okay, don't eat anything. I'm like, well, I have to eat something.
Yeah, exactly.
And I developed a lot of anxiety around food because I didn't know. And some things would affect me more than others. I still had symptoms, but I knew that sometimes when I ate these types of foods, it's not as bad. So then I stuck to those foods, even if it wasn't healing me.
Which foods were those that were not so bad?
So at the time, I went through a variety of different things. One thing I found that was really helpful was raw goat kefir. That helped. It didn't make things all the way better, but I did notice a change.
Supposed to be very healing for the gut.
Yeah. There's a lady out in Buckeye. Shout out Sonoran Scavengers.
Oh,
Nice.
nice.
She sold me goat kefir and kept me alive, I think, until I could find a solution.
What does it taste like?
I mean, at the time, I was going from eating almost nothing or fruit, and I lost a ton of weight. All of a sudden, I'm drinking this goat kefir, and people are like, "That's disgusting," and I'm like, "This is amazing.
This is medicine.
Yeah, it felt like it at the time for sure.
Wow.
Do you still drink it?
I don't really, because I found other things, other options. I do drink raw kefir, just not goat kefir anymore. Yeah.
Okay, so go on with what you basically tried that didn't work.
Yeah, so I think I mentioned a variety of different diets. I did all the common ones, Whole30, Paleo, the autoimmune protocol. Those things didn't work for me. And then finally I found someone who did something called autonomic response testing. And it's just basically a method that started over in Europe, and they use, it's basically kinesiology, a form of it, to identify which types of foods your body is benefiting from, or which types of foods are damaging your body. And from there, in conjunction, the practitioner I saw also pointed me to the Weston A. Price Foundation, as well as the GAPS diet. So when I started getting better, I incorporated the GAPS diet, which when I started getting better immediately.
What is the GAPS diet? I've never heard of that one.
So it stands for the Gut and Physiology or Gut and Psychology Syndrome. It's used. I think it's controversial to many, but it's helped children with autism and people with all sorts of gut issues.
What are the foundations of that diet?
So it's basically you start with meat stock.
Meat stock.
So you cook meat for an
Like
extended
bone
period
broth.
of time. It is like bone broth, except you're not just cooking the bones, you're doing the meat as well. So it's you want to buy high quality meat with the bone included and tendons and ligaments and all that. You cook it for a certain amount of time, and then it releases all those things into the stock, and you make soup out of it. And so it was like day one. The next day when I woke up, I noticed oh, things are getting better very quickly.
Wow.
And even just eating the food, I felt like, oh, my body this is what you've been missing right there. I felt it. So
I'm definitely going to need to check into this diet. That's fascinating.
That just gave me goosebumps seeing you say that and talk about that. So would you mix any kind of vegetables into the beef stock or?
Yeah, I did.
Or the meat stock? What did you use mostly beef or a different kind of lamb?
So I was trying all sorts of things, just really getting my feet wet and trying to figure it out. Yeah, I did lamb, I did beef, I tried oxtail, bison.
Did you eat the actual meat or did you just use
I
the
did.
liquid?
Yeah,
Okay.
I would use that for the calories and then use the liquid as well.
And mix what into the soup?
I mean,
Potatoes?
at first, I had so much anxiety about introducing foods that might bother me. Yeah, I was just pretty much, let's just do the meat, and saw that helped. And then I started incorporating other cooked vegetables, like the tops of broccoli. I would cut the stalk off just to be sure. Cauliflower, beets, sweet potatoes, things like that.
Wow.
How long until you really started to see progress?
So, I mean, the progress started right away.
Yeah.
But I noticed that along the way, if I started incorporating foods that would bother my system, it would set me back a little bit. So, and then I had so much fear involving food, so I would stop and just stick with what I knew was good for me. But I used the GAPS diet pretty much exclusively for almost 2 years. And then from there, I got to a point where, even if I had foods that weren't necessarily the best for me, it wouldn't send me back to a place where I was spiraling or scared that it was really harming me.
So you were able to gain more flexibility as long
Yeah.
as you stuck to your core principles and just had a little, maybe like the 80-20 rule kind of thing where.
For sure. Well, and when I say incorporating different things, like I started doing things, like fruit and raw dairy. And I guess eggs were part of
So not
my journey in the
Chick-fil-A.
beginning. Yeah, definitely not. No. Well, that's the way I went before. And I
Right.
knew I would never go back there again.
Yes.
Yeah.
When you said earlier that you had so much toxicity in your body, can you explain to us what that toxicity was and where you think it might have come from?
Yeah, well, so many places. And through my work with this practitioner who does the autonomic response testing, she told me all about heavy metals and EMF, all things that I was never really familiar with before. And she told me that I was suffering from viruses and parasites and all these things. And for a while, I had no idea where that would come from. Now I think I've come to gain a better understanding of where toxicity comes from food and our environment. All sorts of places. And not only that, but even my own perspective and my beliefs and my thinking were even impacting the way I was functioning and healing.
Tell us more about that.
Well, so she told me from the beginning, I think I've alluded to it a little bit, that I said that I would do anything to get better. And she told me yeah, I see that you're willing to do anything, but do you really believe that you can be well? And at the time, through some introspection, I realized that I didn't really think I could be well. I thought I knew it all and had tried it all. And so actually, my wife is the one who really connected me with the doctor and asked me to try it. And I said, sure, I'll do it for you. But at the time, I didn't believe that it was going to do anything or help me.
So knowing what you know now, how powerful are your thoughts in this whole?
I mean, they're everything. Because without them, if you think, what's that famous saying? As a man thinks, so is he. And it's so true. If I think I can't be well, it's going to drive everything I do. I'm not going to be committed to a plan or to changing my life if I think it's not going to really do anything. So I could have kept showing up for the appointments, but if I didn't think it was going to help me, I wouldn't have taken the steps necessary to change my life and my habits, because those were the things that needed to change. I wanted a quick fix, but what I really needed was a change in my mind, and then from there, my body.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you could give advice to someone who may be in, let's call it the pit of despair, when you wake up, things are fine, you wake up one day, all of a sudden you're feeling terrible and you just start to snowball essentially. It is hard to keep your mind in a place where you have hope and you are motivated and you believe that you can get better. In hindsight, looking back, is there something that you, words of advice or any kind of tips or tricks you could give someone to try and help them?
Yeah. Well, so I know that I had a lot of people in my life who loved and cared about me a lot, enough to not let me slip into that place of despair, or stay there, I should say. So having a really wonderful group of people around you is everything. I actually had a group of women who got together and prayed for me once a week. And I think at the time I thought that's nice, but that's not doing anything.
Right.
Until now I look back and I'm like, oh, that is what did everything to get me to the place where I myself could finally realize that I could be well. So anyone who's struggling, who was in a pit of despair, I mean, I would just tell you that there is absolutely hope for you. And I don't know if the thing that I did is the thing that's going to be what heals you, but I do know that there is healing and it is possible because I've lived it. And I do know that for people struggling with issues like mine, that it's a wonderful way to start.
As you implemented the MAPS diet,
GAPS.
GAPS, not
There's
the
no
MAPS.
MAPS diet. I don't
GAPS
think.
diet.
It'll give you a map, but yeah.
Okay, perfect. And you began to feel better. How quickly did the gastrointestinal symptoms go away, and when did the breathing get better?
I can't think back and think of it. There's no differentiation between the two.
Okay.
I just started to get better in every
Yeah.
way. So that was the reverse psoriasis, it was the breathing, and it was
Yeah.
the gastrointestinal issues just all at once. So I'm like I've said, it sounds crazy, but it was immediate. Not saying I was all the way better immediately, but my symptoms started to improve right away. So it was I've talked about how I was on the toilet for hours a day. then like as I remember it, I could be remembering it wrong, but it was like the next day, all of a sudden, I had a semi-normal movement. No more extreme pain.
Wow.
No more blood everywhere.
You're
So
like, I pooped.
I was like, yeah, and man, if I never thought that taking poop for granted, but wow,
Yeah.
I will never take it for granted again. Every time I have a movement, I thank God, and yeah, it's
That is
wonderful.
going to be one of our clips
For sure.
Yeah.
because
Every time I poop, I thank God. Yes.
yes, perfect soundbite. I think people.
Amen.
So many people actually deal with struggles,
Oh gosh.
digestion struggles, but no one wants to talk about it.
Yeah.
Right? It's not a sexy thing to talk about.
And,
What's
and mine was so extreme that I couldn't not talk about it.
Right.
But for most people, I think who deal with IBS or minor issues, they just think this is my new normal, and I'm just going to deal with this. And
But what you're saying is that is your body trying to tell you something.
absolutely,
Do not ignore your body's signals. Something seems weird or not right.
Yes.
It's because your body's screaming at you to say, hey, pay attention. We need to do something differently.
yes.
Did you ever get a label / diagnosis for the gastrointestinal?
Yes, ulcerative colitis.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the naturopath or the primary care, who
That was-
diagnosed it as
so
ulcerative colitis?
Actually, not too far from where we're recording this this podcast, I went to this fancy office in Scottsdale, a gastrointestinal specialist, and that really my interactions with him, who was a very nice man, but he told me that I would just have to take medicine forever. There was nothing I could do. It didn't matter what foods I ate. It's just a genetic problem, and that's just what happens.
So he said it's genetic,
Yeah.
even though it showed up out of nowhere, and there's nothing you
Yes.
can do about it.
Yes.
Does that make any sense to you?
It didn't, which is why I'm sitting here today, because I could have just, I asked him the question. So I had a colonoscopy. He officially diagnosed me with ulcerative colitis, and he showed me the little pill bottle and said, "Yeah, just take these for the rest of your life." And I said, "Really? Like forever? It doesn't matter what I eat?" No, just take these. It'll be fine.
Wow. That is just one small example of how broken our system is, our medical system is.
Yeah.
Do you recall which drug that was?
Aprezo. I think it was
Aprezo.
called.
And Aprezo, my guess would be, we could have like ChatGPT jump in and help on this, but my guess is it helps to calm sort of the flare up. So it probably does that by turning some stuff off.
Yeah, so it's an anti-inflammatory drug, and it worked for about 6 months. It would leave these little beads in
So
my
you
stool.
took it.
Yeah.
You took it for 6 months. Yeah,
I
that's right.
did.
You did say that a few minutes ago. So
Yeah.
you did take it and it did help for a while.
did.
Okay, so it
But only with the blood.
yeah.
So
Not the pain.
it did help with all the gastrointestinal symptoms in a sense, though it did come with some side effects. It didn't help the breathing or the rashes. And it made me gain a lot of weight. So my weight has fluctuated a ton through this process. So when I was only eating fruit or barely anything or goat kefir, I was down to like 120 pounds.
Wow.
And my normal, I'm about 6 foot,
Yeah.
and right now I weigh like a 190.
Yeah.
And so it was pretty low for me. And then once I went on the medication, I went up to like 220, which is too much. So it was causing weight gain and
Mhm.
yeah.
In your worst moment, what would you say on a scale of 1 to 10? 10 feeling your best, 1 feeling your worst. What was your average on a daily basis?
Well, every morning it was a 1.
Yeah.
Throughout the day, I just had extremely low energy. And this is embarrassing, but I have these memories of I was going to shop because I would normally buy the groceries for my wife and I. And I went to the grocery store and I was just like crying because I would see all these foods and I was so hungry and I just wanted to eat, but I didn't know what to eat and it was hard. So during those times, it felt like a 1. And throughout the day, as long as I was, I could barely function, but I would say like maybe a 3 or a 4 would be my average if I wasn't on the toilet or in the grocery store.
Yeah. That's not a number that we strive for, right?
Yeah, right.
So what would you say like on a regular basis today, how is your status with your health?
Well, so I have a sedentary job where I sit at a desk. and there's a lot of stress involved. So I would say, during those times, maybe a 7, but not because I physically feel bad at all. I would say, like right now, I feel like a 10. I've never been healthier.
That's great.
And do you credit mostly your diet then to that, or did you add any supplementation into that?
So supplementation was a part of my journey, whole food supplementation.
Okay.
Certainly. So the practitioner I saw was recommending these specific supplements that she said that my body needed to heal effectively.
Which ones were they?
Oh, all sorts of things.
Yeah.
I know I took chlorella tablets, certain types of fish oil, even some weird ones like emu oil, which apparently has the highest concentration of vitamin K in the world. There's these studies with these wolves that were incredibly sick and on this processed foods. They started giving them this emu oil and they like immediately got better.
Wow.
So all sorts of things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And many more, but.
So is that something you continue to do today along with the diet for most of the time, or?
It's mostly diet. Sometimes I will have like fermented cod liver oil, which I think is a really beneficial product. It's one of the principles of the Weston A. Price Foundation. So, sometimes we eat desiccated liver or things like that. But for the most part, it's really all coming from food.
And still doing the GAPS diet.
So you know what? I'm not. Only because of time constraints. It took a huge shift to start making this every day, and I think it's beneficial, and I'd like to go back to incorporating more of it in my daily life. But really, I'm just more eating animal based, focusing on like ancestral principles. So a lot of high quality grass fed meats, wild caught fish. I eat sourdough bread.
Yeah, give us a well, first of all, I'll say it seems, yes, it makes sense why the GAPS diet would take a lot of time and preparation. And I get that. Like, it's tough to stick to. And once you feel better and you can like process quote unquote regular meat, you're like, well, why am I going to take all that time when I can just grill a steak and eat it?
Right.
Maybe walk us through like a typical breakfast, typical lunch, typical dinner for you.
So yeah,
if there is such a thing.
There is. We order from a variety of different farmers and regenerative farms. So I would say a typical day of eating would be I wake up and have a piece of sourdough bread with a bunch of butter on it. We order from an Amish farm. We're a part of a co-op, and so they have cultured butter that's raw, and we spread on the sourdough bread. And then we eat a lot of whey-fed pork from that farm as well. So make some bacon. And right now we're actually eating a lot of duck eggs from that farm too. We started eating duck eggs, but I mean,
those are
we
supposed
do
to be
chicken
very
too.
nutritious.
They are, and they're delicious. Yeah, they're very good. So that would be like a breakfast for me. Yeah. And I go to work, and there's certain things that I've found that my body just assimilates well. So we order these sourdough crackers that I usually eat, meat sticks that we buy from the store.
Which brands on the crackers and the meat sticks?
Yeah, so it's from Jovial. They're einkorn crackers.
Those are great.
They are, yeah. Real simple to eat. And Vermont meat sticks. They have like a turkey pepperoni that I like.
Nice.
And my son likes their beef and pork. And then I've been eating coconut yogurt every day for years.
Like
is
Coco
that fermented?
June?
It's Cocoyo is the brand.
Cocoyo. Oops.
Yeah,
What did I call
or however you say it.
Coco
June?
Cocoyo.
I assumed it was a different brand, but yeah. So I have that once a day, and yeah,
That's like a typical lunch.
Yeah, just because it's easy to bring to work. And then at home at night, me and my boys, we eat ice cream together every night. It doesn't have anything funny in it. It's just milk, cream, and either maple syrup or organic cane sugar. But
You make your own.
Oh, I wish. I actually order a lot of raw ice cream from that Amish farm.
I need to get the name of this Amish farm from you.
Absolutely. Well, it's Miller's Organic Farm.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, let the audience know. I mean,
I want to promote them like crazy.
Yeah,
Miller's
exactly.
Organic
Yeah.
Farm. We'll put that
so
in the show
here
notes
in the Phoenix area.
No.
Oh.
So they actually deliver from Pennsylvania.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so they would deliver once every 6 weeks. I wish it was more often. So we go out to a spot in the valley and pick it up and bring it home. I always have periods of time where my fridge and freezers are either packed to the brim or super empty. But so
they have like I think you said it was a co-op, right? So they
Yes.
deliver a
To
big truck to
in
a
a
local
semi
and a
truck,
drop off.
and everyone lines up and
Gets
grabs
their
their
stuff.
food. Yep.
Cool.
Yeah.
And that's something it's all over the country essentially, or no?
Yeah, they do have deliveries all over the country.
That's really
And
good.
they were actually embroiled in this big scandal not too long ago because the federal government was trying to shut them down. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot of talk about that, I think, prior to the election of
Yep.
the Amish in Pennsylvania getting like USDA maybe going after
And
them.
this was their farm specifically.
Oh,
Oh,
it was
wow.
their
Yeah.
farm.
Yeah.
Maybe because they're doing such good
I mean,
customer
they're
service
healing people.
that
I think
you kind of wonder sometimes, is the government for us or against us?
Yeah, trying to force them to put additives in their products to
Yeah.
keep everyone safe.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And here you are thriving.
Yeah.
If you have any other resources that you'd like to share that you guys are utilizing.
Another popular one that we order from is Force of Nature. They have a regenerative farm in Texas, and they partner with restaurants like True Food, I think Hop Dottie in the Valley. They're wonderful. They have chorizo. We eat their breakfast sausage a lot. They have like maple sausage, all sorts of steak. Yeah, they're great. Bison tongue is something that I made once.
Ooh.
That's a little bit funky for a lot of people, but it's
How did
actually
you
really
cook
good.
that?
It's very specific. You have to kind of like tear the outside off and cook it for a long time, but it's really tender. It's good.
Do you eat the taste buds?
I don't think so, because that's the part on the outside of the tongue. I
That's the
think
part
so
you take off.
take that off.
Oh, that would
Yeah,
trip
yeah,
me out.
Yeah.
Do you eat the taste buds?
I had to ask.
Yeah.
So I'm curious on your protocol in terms of, your healthcare practitioner, blood tests. Do you do like routine labs now? What's your...
I don't. I kind of lost trust in a lot of the labs just because they all told me that I was extremely sick. And especially with the food allergy test, I think really turned me off because they just said, sorry, you're allergic to everything. You can't really eat anything. So I just kind of lost trust in it. And I saw a result without incorporating that. I know that's really helpful for a lot of people to kind of test where they're at and, incorporate certain things and test again. But I haven't done that as part of my journey.
I think that's really interesting because I agree with you. I've had experience of my own where, I've done multiple different food tests from multiple different companies and the results are not congruent either. So I think that's fascinating that you've just decided I'm just going to trust my body's intuition and do what I know feels right for me. And if I feel good, I don't need to run a bunch of tests.
Yeah.
Right?
That's exactly my approach. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're finding more and more that the trying to like steer your body based on test results is like trying to, I don't know, sail a boat as if it were a car. And it's like, just doesn't seem to work that way. And like, it's better to like be the captain of your own ship and like, okay, I'm going in this direction. And do I feel good?
Yeah.
Okay. That's all that really matters.
We're going to keep going in this direction then.
Like, who
Yeah.
cares what a number on a piece of paper may say? How do I feel?
There's so much difference in opinion on what an appropriate level is of any given vitamin, or my cholesterol is high or my blood pressure is high. But I found that when I incorporate these high quality foods into my life and I exercise and I sleep and I get outside and get lots of sun, I just feel amazing. So regardless of what the numbers would say, I can trust what my body's telling me.
You have an awesome story, and I'm so happy. Like, looking at you here, you would never guess that you were once 120 pounds and
Or 120
or 220.
Yeah.
Like, you look very in shape, like good, like musculature. Have you talked to other people about this before, and have they made have they made the changes and incorporated the GAPS diet? And they're like, Landon, thank you so much for telling me about that. I feel so much better.
That's a great question. So when I started to get better, when you find something that works for you, you want to tell everyone, right? So I was trying to tell anyone that would listen, sick or not, like you need to do this, right? Like I feel amazing. And for a time, I had to kind of learn that I needed to back off a little bit, especially with my family, who I was trying to help them with various ailments or just their own struggles. So I was trying to convince them instead of just allowing them to just kind of see my life and see how it impacted me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Reminds me of myself in pickleball. Once I started playing, I wanted everyone to play, and they had to come at it at their own pace.
That's right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The world has come around, Patrick.
Yeah, they
I
really
think
have.
most people have at least heard of pickleball by now.
Right.
At least.
Yeah.
This is perhaps maybe our shortest podcast, but I would say ranking up there as like the most powerful and just the most like stark difference of like, it was this bad. I think you're our first 1 out of 10 and 10 out of 10.
Oh,
In terms of scale of how you're feeling.
Because that's a question that we ask all the guests, and it's really inspiring. I've had goosebumps a couple times. It's really inspiring to hear you talk about it and to see you now just be thriving. Your kids are doing good. Are they having any health challenges or anything? Because you did pass some of your genetics on to them.
Yes, I did.
So how are they doing?
I mean, they're doing great. Like they don't struggle with any eczema that most kids do. They're little boys. I have a 6-year-old boy, a 2-year-old boy. And I have a ton of energy, just like most kids do. But in school, my oldest, he is an amazing student. He's a leader and he's kind. And I think that food has a big part to play in that. I think it helps him stay focused. Not that he's perfect, or me either at all. But I think it just makes everything easier. When you feel your best, you can perform your best. And when you take care of yourself, you can take care of other people. One of the hardest things for me when I was really ill was that I couldn't help anyone. I couldn't do anything for anyone else. And I found like a big part of my identity was being there for others and helping other people. And during this time, I couldn't. And so that was one of the hardest parts.
That's tough on you mentally, like psychologically, right?
Yeah.
Where you're like feeling like useless, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did feel useless for sure.
So you were saying you feed your kids pretty much the same diet that you eat.
As
Like,
much
this is
as
how
I
your family
possibly
eats.
can. Sometimes at school and at parties, they get handed stuff, or my son can figure out how to get his hands on some things that he wants to try. And of course, that's natural. Yesterday, they had an Easter party at school, and he tried a peep, and he said, "Dad, that was gross." I'm like,
Yeah.
I tried to tell you.
Good job.
Yeah.
And then he's making that choice for himself. And I'm sure you're educating him on like, what that probably has food coloring in it. Do you know what that does to
Oh,
your
yeah.
brain? And all of those things, I think just educating them on why this food isn't good to put into your body and what can happen if you do.
Yeah, because and I had so much anxiety around food, and I try to be really cognizant of that and not pass that along to them, because I don't want them to have anxiety about it, but I do want them to understand that there's a difference. I've heard there's a movement where like food is food, and I wholeheartedly disagree. I think certain things are like meant for optimal human function, and other things aren't.
Well, you could argue that peeps are not actually food.
100%. Yeah.
That's how I feel about it anyway.
Oh, yeah.
You know, food is true if it's actually food. If it's a bunch of processed junk, it's not actually food.
Yeah. And my wife likes to tell me that we need to help them understand the difference between like something that's actually poison that will kill them immediately versus things that will kill them more slowly.
Yes.
But
It's
yeah.
all about education. And I feel like you've done a great job educating me and hopefully everyone else that's listening today on like just by sharing your story.
Yeah.
I am curious on the diet you landed on, the ancestral. It sounds a lot like the recommendations of Ray Peat. Are you familiar with Ray Peat?
I'm actually not.
Okay, he's since passed, but he was just really has been influential for me and like the way that I choose to like eat and how I feel my best. But it's very sourdough bread, fruit and roots, and grass-fed meats and raw dairy. Basically,
That does sound very
That's what
similar
it
to
is,
what
so-
I do. Yeah.
yeah.
Was it Ray Peat? I think talks about Weston A. Price, doesn't he? Doesn't he base a lot of his foundations on that?
It sounds like it, yeah.
I think there is a tie there.
Yeah.
Big on like healing your own thyroid is one of his big things with
Okay.
food. So he has a lot of fascinating research and a lot of good things to say. So if anybody wants to check out Ray Peat,
How do you spell the last name?
Raypeat is how you spell it. So is there anything else you want to leave anyone with? Any other little nuggets that, could potentially help somebody if they're either struggling or they know someone that is, or just recapping the key bullet points that you reflect on that are like, all right, these are the core principles that helped me.
Yeah, just going back to the beginning, just reminding people that even if you feel like there's no hope, there's absolutely hope for you. There's something out there that can work for you. You just have to be willing to do everything you can to find it.
The title of his book, Healing is Possible for You.
I love that. If you decide to write it, which I think I hope you do, I'll buy a copy.
Oh, thank you. That means so much. Thank you so much for having me on. It's really a privilege to be here, just to be able to share my story. And if anyone can, find healing from it, then it's all been worth it.
Awesome.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.